This is a 2015 Mazda CX-5 Sport, and so it's got about 125,000 miles. You can look in the video description for links to tools and products. They're on Amazon. All right, so I'm making little separate videos on all these jobs I did, but I originally did them mixed in with a bunch of other work, and I'll put a link to the long video in the video description. All right, so we're gonna change the automatic transmission fluid. Okay, you can see my ratchet. There's a nut right there that's holding on the dipstick for the transmission. All right, so what you see when you look down there is the 10mm bolt, and you'll see this plastic square, gray plastic sticking up. So you have to take the 10mm bolt out, and then you reach down and you grab this and you pull it out. And so this is your dipstick to your transmission. I've already wiped this one clean, and so we're just going to set it aside. When I did the bolt, it of course didn't stick to my ratchet, so it fell down in there. So I got to go down next and take off the access panel from the bottom. And this is what I used. I would probably recommend investing in a longer ratchet extension. So this one looks like a 3-inch extension, and this is like probably a 6-inch extension. So you might want a longer one as well. So anyway, but it worked. All I did was left this in there, the ratchet, to loosen it. And once it was loose, since I didn't have a lot of room to work around in there, I took that off and just turned this by hand. So that's how I did it. Okay, so we got this access panel off. It's hard to video into the car, so I'm going to show it to you now that we can both see it. This is the front of the car, driver's side, passenger side. So you're going to have 8 10mm bolts. They're going to be here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to need a deep socket, and I have a 3-inch extension because this is recessed. You'd be coming in, this would be up on the car, so you're coming in from the bottom. So this one and this one are hard to reach if you just had a regular small socket. So get you either some setup like this, or you can use a 10mm screwdriver if you want to come straight in like that. And then I just use this to save some time, but you don't have to have that. You can use a regular ratchet. And then in the back, you've got 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these plastic clips, which are just kind of a pain. So you gotta remember, this is a 2015 automobile, it's 2024. So these clips have been in there for 9 years, probably without ever being touched. So their idea of these clips, how they're supposed to work, theoretically, is that you would take a clip removal tool. I'll put links to everything in the description. You may not own something like this, but it's worth buying. Ideally, it's supposed to slip in here. You pop the little button out, and that allows the clip to come out and be reused, where you would put it back in and then hit the button in, and it expands this and holds it in there. Well, after 9 years of road grime, these wouldn't budge, so I had to get the clip removal tool. Instead of in the right place, these wouldn't move. I had to get it under there and work on prying the whole thing out, which was kind of a pain. It took a little while to get those 6 clips out. So there's no way I can reuse these. So to save you money from going and buying these at an auto parts store or your dealer, I'm going to put a link in the description to a bag of these things for a cheap price. These clips work, so you're going to need 6 new ones. And I'll put a link to a bag. I think it's like a bag of 40 or something, but good deal on Amazon. So I'm going to put those in the description, so when I put it back, I'll be using only the new clips for the back 6. So let's get under the car. So reference on the passenger side, there was the oil right there. And then on the driver's side, this is our transmission pan right here. So this is your your oil drain pan, that's your oil drain plug, your oil filter. This is your transmission pan. If you were just doing a drain and fill, you drain it right here, okay? So what we're gonna do, since we're changing this filter, since this car has 125,000 miles on it about, we're gonna go ahead and drop the pan. So we're gonna drain it first, then we're gonna take out all these bolts around here to get the pan off, okay? So that's what we'll be doing, is taking that pan off. So our next step is to drain the oil. This takes that special 8mm hex socket. We'll put a link to that in the description because you're gonna need that. All right, so we have a 3/8 inch drive with the that 8mm hex, and we're gonna drain the transmission fluid. We have our pan underneath. We cracked that open with no problem. Little surprised it came off that easily. I don't know if this has ever been changed. No record of it, so who knows. All right. So I've got the bolt in my hand. I'm gonna set it on top there. I'll let that drain. And what I did was I emptied this, had oil in it from before, I emptied it out into a container so that whatever's in here is how much automatic transmission fluid we get out. So we'll get some out from the pan, it's already almost empty. We're gonna get more out when we unloosen all these bolts and drop the pan, we'll get more out. And then when we take the filter out that's inside, we'll get more out. So all that liquid will go into that container, and then we'll measure it when we're done to find out how much came out. All right, so this is our transmission drain bolt. That's the 8mm socket goes in there. And so this is the bolt, and this is the crush washer that was on there. So it's always good to make sure you got that off, that it didn't stick. Okay, so I thought it was gonna be really hard to get this off because it was not moving and it's so thin. I was able to get a hold of the washer only from the side, and then I took my socket and I unscrewed it, and it just unscrewed barely and popped off my hand and fell, and that was enough to dislodge the washer. So I always throw the old ones away so I don't mix them up with the new ones. New crush washer. I've got all the crush washer sizes and links in the description. So now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put this back, and the torque for this is between 23 and 30 foot-pounds. So this is a 3/8 inch torque wrench. So 27 foot-pounds is kind of in the middle. Okay, so I've got a rag, got my bolt with the new crush washer, got a wipe. Now I'm gonna put the bolt in real quick, and then my hand, do this by hand always, so you don't cross thread. So do it by hand. I'm gonna grab my torque wrench, and I'm gonna just kind of tighten it up. Okay, now I make contact. I got mine set at 27 foot-pounds. I'm waiting to hear the click. Okay, that's it. All right, so now we're dealing with this number of 10mm bolts. So they're really not that tight. I'm just loosening them up with this, and then I'm gonna use the screwdriver to save some time. So there's 4. Yeah, we got 10 of these. Like I say, they're not on tight, and that's why you want to follow torque specs, because I have the torque specs to put these back, and I remember it being very low. I was surprised at how low the torque was on these smaller 10 millimeter bolts. So I'll tell you what that is when I get there, because I'll have to look it up again. I don't remember. Wrote it all down. I'll put it all in the video description as well. Now I said 10. Let me count them because this is a different shape here at the top. So I'm going to start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 10 millimeter bolts. So I've loosened them all with a ratchet. I'm going to move over to my little ratchet screwdriver that I got. And I'm going to leave the 4 corners on while I do everything else real quick. Okay, so we took out 12 out of the 16 bolts. We left the 4 corner bolts in. And even the 4 corner bolts that we left in, we loosened them. So they were loose several threads. We loosened them a little bit more because what we have to do is we have to break this gasket away. So we're gonna get this is I believe aluminum, and we don't wanna ruin that by hitting it with a steel hammer. So we're gonna use like a rubber mallet or something, and we're gonna hit it from the sides and try to break the seal. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna go get a rubber mallet and see what I can do there to break it free. Once we break it free, then the bolts are gonna hold it on loosely to keep it all from spilling on us when it breaks free. So once we can tell that this has broken free from the gasket material, then we will carefully remove the remaining 4 bolts and drop it and drain it into our pan. So I'm gonna go get my rubber mallet. All right, so we have a rubber mallet right here. All right, so after beating on this pan pretty good with the rubber mallet and thinking that it wasn't doing anything, I realized it had separated. So I just went around the whole pan making sure that it was separated so that when I start taking these bolts out in the corner, that I'm not gonna have any sticky spots, and I feel like we got it. So what I'm gonna do is get this pan ready here to hold all this stuff. I'm gonna take out two corners opposite first, and then I'm gonna take out this one and hold this end up while I slide this under, and then I'll take out the last one. So we'll see how that works, because remember, there's still some fluid in there. Even though we drained it, we still got some fluid in there. So I want to not just let this thing fall. So I'm going to hold it up even though I've still got 3 corners. Okay, always wear safety glasses and stuff because I'm getting little, dust and stuff falling on my face. So now I only got 2 corners holding it up. So it's not like it's heavy or anything. You just don't want to get stuff spilled on you. See, that back end is loose. So now I've only got 1 corner holding it on. So I want to get this under it completely. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to get this last one off. Okay. Just my hand is holding that pan up. I'm going to center my drain pan a little better underneath of it. I'm going to kind of come straight down with it. I'm going to set the pan in the pan. Okay, I got all sorts of drips coming from up top. So I'm going to slowly kind of turn this pan over so it spills out inside the pan. So that's how I'm doing it. And remember, it's still dripping from the top, so I gotta remember that there's still stuff dripping, and I've got kind of a mess in this pan. So I think the easiest thing for me to do now that since I'm gonna have to put this pan somewhere, I'm just gonna keep the pan under it like that, because I can turn it over later. And this, if you can see this black plastic thing, that is our filter. So Mazda references it as a strainer, but I call them filters. So when we say we're changing the filter, it may be what they call the strainer. And I believe it's just held in by 2 bolts. This one right here, still the 10 millimeter. Okay, got that loose, but it's still in there. And then I believe there's one, my pan is in my way. So let me see if I can kind of go around it. I really want my drain pan under there still. Okay, it's right here. All you gotta do is look at where the black plastic is, because everything else is a different color. So okay, really don't want that falling, but so go ahead and see if I can get that. Okay, here's that one. Trying to keep these bolts separate from my other 10 millimeter bolts, even though they may be the same size. I'm just gonna keep them with the same item. So remember, once again, we're gonna get 2 sources of more fluid. So I got the second bolt off, so I'm just being held in with my hand. So when I pull this off, there's some fluid in the filter itself, and then there's gonna be a hole where this is connected to the transmission, and I'm gonna get quite a bit of fluid coming out of there. So here goes. Okay, there it is. Right here's that hole I was talking about. It's coming out this hole. So I'm gonna take this pan and I'm gonna start cleaning it up. So we gotta clean this pan. We gotta clean the gasket off this pan, but so that it's not as nasty to work on, I'm gonna start off by just wiping it down. So this is the bottom of the pan. This right here is the magnet. Okay, the magnet grabs metal shavings. Look at that. That's all metal. So this is the metal that this magnet has grabbed. That's all metal. All right, so I would only recommend like dropping a pan and going through all this trouble somewhere between every 90 and 120,000 miles. And then every 30,000 miles, just doing a drain and fill, which is so much easier than what we're doing with this pan today. So we got our clean magnet ready to go. We've wiped this out with a rag. What I'm gonna do is on this bottom side, since it's got oil everywhere, just gonna kind of hit it with some brake clean real quick. Then I'm gonna spray the inside of it. You don't have to do this. Wiping it down is just fine, but I'm gonna go ahead and spray it with this just to get rid of the residue. Okay, so to remove the silicone gasket material, I'll put links in the description. Got this non-mooring chisel set and this gasket remover spray. So we're going to use this to give us some assistance. We may also use some isopropyl alcohol, but we're definitely going to start with this. Okay, this is a Permatex foaming action gasket remover. It says on the directions to apply the gasket remover by dispensing a pad to angle brush. Using the brush, spread the gasket remover over everything and allow it to sit for at least 15 minutes. But it's a little confusing because then it says it requires 25 to 30 minutes. Then after that, you come back and you use a non-mooring tool. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and figure out how to apply this. And we're gonna, okay. And that's not very hard. You just push on this and it goes on. Yeah, make sure I'm on this, tarp. It's rotating on me. So I'm gonna look at the time. Hope I have enough because I need to do the same thing on the housing that's stuck to the car still. So this isn't all we have to do. We have to do it here and there. So, oh my land, I think it's already out. Kidding me. Oh my. So I would have needed to buy 3 of these to get this to work. Okay, so had I known that, this is where you learn from my mistakes. I could have done it a lot less and used this brush, you know, to kind of move it around. It probably didn't need to be on that thick to do something. So what I can do is kind of spread it around and then dip it in here and spread it on the top. But if I were doing this over again, you have the link in the description. This is the hardest part of this job, so you're not wasting money. I would buy 3 of these. And I would just put it on liberally and not worry about it. But anyway, we're gonna see what we can do with one by spreading it that way. And then I'm gonna get into the car. Then we're just, got our drain pan out of the way. Still got tarp under this in case we get occasional drips. Always wear glasses in case you get dripped on. You don't want it in your eyes. And we're just kind of painting around this seal with this brush. Again, wish I'd have bought 3 of these so I could have put it on super thick. I would not consider that a waste of money at all. That's how I wish I'd have been able to do it. But you learn from my mistakes. So we just kind of paint around. Okay, so a couple of updates since we turned the video off. We measured how much transmission fluid came out and we had 5 quarts come out. We had to leave for, it's been 2.5 hours. Came back and all this drained out onto the tarp when we were gone. Just dripped out. So good thing we had a tarp down. So anyway, we're gonna clean that up and then we're gonna look at our gasket and see how hard it is to get that off. All right, so at this point, this stuff's been sitting here about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we have this non-mooring chisel set. Just gonna kind of see how it goes. Okay. See, it definitely did something. Go ahead and get the easy stuff first. Looks like the stuff that's kind of on the edge of the inside coming off. Just don't want to use anything like a screwdriver, metal, stuff like that on here. You just scratch up the pan real bad, and then you probably get leaks when you put the new gasket on. So this is the time-consuming part of this project. So I'm gonna keep working. We'll check back in with you and kind of let you know how long it takes, but you don't need to watch a video about me scraping, but this is the hard part of this job right here. So I'll check back in with you in a minute. Alright, so just giving you real quick updates as we go. This is 15 minutes in. Been very pleased so far. I know it's gonna take a while to get, you know, all the last details, but I've been using this tool and this tool so far. It's like a plastic razor blade that won't scratch anything. I'll put links to everything in the description. We'll check back in with you later. Alright, this is after 25 minutes. We squirted it with some just regular isopropyl alcohol, and now I'm using a nylon brush that I'm going to see if it'll get some stuff off of. Looks like it's getting some of it off. Really doing pretty well for 25 minutes. And then this brush set also got a brass brush, which should be safe on aluminum. And we'll just kind of see what these do real quick. And we'll check back in with you. Alright, so 35 minutes in, we got it clean. That brass brush and the rubbing alcohol really helped. The only thing we can see is in the bolt holes. There's a little bit of pink, so got this little tool that I'm just kind of trying to knock the silicone out of those where the bolt holes are. Not real sure if that's necessary or not, but I'm gonna go around and kind of rub those edges. All right, 40 minutes in, we're done. We're gonna take some brake clean and do our surface where our silicone gasket will eventually go. Gonna spray it on this rag and wipe this top surface where my silicone's gonna end up going to make our new gasket. Gonna rub that on there. Give our gasket a good surface, be clean. And then we've got our magnet that's all clean. It's going to go back there. That is a strong magnet right there. So this is done. Until we're ready to put our gasket in, we're just going to set it aside. Now we're going to continue this job under there. So just to review, we let that gasket remover sit for, what was it, like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something? You want to let it sit at least 30 minutes, I think. We used these non-mooring, a couple of sizes, to get a lot of it off. Then I saw what I could get with this plastic scraper. Then I put some rubbing alcohol I also kind of dried it off with the rag, that foamy stuff, because I felt like it was slipping too much. So I kind of dried it off with the rag before I did all this, my time on these. And then I put some alcohol on it. Didn't really get much success with the nylon brush, but the brass brush did great. And it's supposed to be softer than aluminum, so it's supposed to be safe to do that by what I saw. So that really helped. So very pleased. So now we're gonna see what conditions we're gonna work with underneath. All right, so looking under here, I want you to see what I see. So remember all that spillage I told you happened? Look at all the transmission fluid coming out of everything. So we're gonna start by taking one of our rags and just kind of gently wiping that stuff off. And then we'll begin our process of wiping off the gaskets. All right, it's been 15 minutes so far. Just gonna give you a little update. So went around everything with the non-marring tool. All I've used so far is this one. But not bad in 15 minutes. Made some good progress. Some of the advantages of this one over the pan is that the surface is flat. There's not these crevices for the silicone to kind of get down in like we dealt with. So it's a very good start. I mean, we got probably 95 or more % of it off already. So now I think I'm gonna go with some rubbing alcohol and a brush and just skip to that step and see if I can finish it up. All right, in less than 25 minutes we are done. So it took us 45 minutes on the pan, 25 minutes on this. That's an hour and 10 minutes, and that's with me videoing, pausing. So what we did was we started off with the non-marring tool. We showed you that. Then I went straight to the isopropyl alcohol with the brass brush and finished it up, and it was, I mean, so easy. And it literally looks perfect. So then what I did was I took the brake clean, I sprayed it on a rag, and I just went over that surface with the brake clean, and so that it'll be clean as it can be when I put that silicone on there. So our next step is to make our new gasket and start putting this back together. All right, so now I'm just gonna put this new air filter on, the strainer that Mazda calls it. Again, I'll put all the part numbers and everything in the video description. And so what I'm gonna do is take some of this brand new fluid, and I'm just gonna kind of dip my finger in it and lubricate these two O-rings. Then I'm gonna pop it up in there, and then I'm gonna put in the two 10mm bolts, just like we did when it came out. So I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, so we got the filter in there. We just popped it through those O-rings, and then we hand put in started the bolts. So now we're just gonna kind of thread them in until they make contact. And then this one is right here. Close quarters down here to try and video it, but there's two bolts, two 10mm bolts. Okay, so I've got a torque wrench now set to 7 foot-pounds, a very small torque. Okay, and I'm gonna do the bottom one now. Okay, so that's done. The filter's on, so next our gasket. so we got our gasket surfaces clean. So now we're gonna put on our new gasket. So this is the Mazda gasket. Gotta cut this to how thick I want it. I think I'm gonna cut it to right there. See how that goes. I use this to puncture this, I guess. This on. Okay. It's my first time doing this. So it's to do a continuous bead, but we obviously have holes to go around. So my plan is to make a continuous bead. I'm always going to take the inside route, and then once I get around, then I'll just go around and do the outside of the hole. That's what I'm going to do. I feel like I probably chose the right thickness. This is squeeze this tube hard. It's kind of hard on the wrist. It's taking quite a bit of pressure. It's not really getting any easier. I just have to take a break. So I think it's going on pretty controlled. I mean, it's not sloppy, and it's by doing a continuous bead, you shouldn't have leaks. Alright, here's the masterpiece. So, sloppy looking, but it's covered. It's not the easiest thing to use that tube, but everything's covered. So now we're going to get up there. We're going to hand tighten this. Make sure before you do this that you have your magnet put back in and that you have your new filter installed, because you don't want to have to do this over. So what we're going to do is we did figure out the torque is 7 foot-pounds. So we did the inch-pound conversion. So we are going to be able to use the torque wrench later, but not right now. So right now, we're just going to make sure our surface is clean. So I'm going to look up there and make sure that our mating surface is clean. I see a little bit of transmission fluid that's dripped from the top and got on some of our edge. So I'm going to go around that outside edge again and wipe the flat surface plus what's kind of inside that edge. And I'm going to wipe that down one more time and make sure our surface is dry. And now it's go time. So we're just going to line this up and start these bolts. I'm going to need my wife's help, so we'll video in a minute. Alright, so we did got all the bolts on. It really wasn't like smearing out like I thought it would. And I could tell that just when you say finger tight, that's 16 bolts and you get a little resistance. So I ended up using, trying to find it under the car here to show you, but I ended up using this nut driver, not 10 millimeter nut driver, not to put any torque on it, but just to save some time, where I would kind of, start at the corners and then kind of go every other bolt and then go back and just tighten slightly until I felt like it was kind of up getting closer to the base, but not tight. So you can see the gray where it started to squish. So that's what we're looking for right now. So we're going to let it sit like this for 1 hour. Then we're going to come back in an hour and we're going to torque these down to 7 foot-pounds. And again, you want to just, instead of like starting with one bolt and making your way around, you want to do like the 4 corners, like do 2 opposite corners, then the other 2 corners, and then just kind of do opposing sides, and then, just kind of keep track of what you're doing and get all those down to 7 foot-pounds. So we're going to do that in 1 hour. Okay, our transmission pan has been set in an hour. We're going to tighten every one of these bolts to 7 foot-pounds using our torque wrench. Okay, so we torqued all of them to 7 foot-pounds all the way around. So what I did was I kind of spaced them out by doing like this corner and then, the opposite corner, and then, this corner, and then I picked, like a middle bolt on the side, middle bolt on the side over here, middle bolt on the top, middle bolt on the bottom, and then after there were 2 middle bolts on the bottom. So anyway, just kind of spaced them out, make sure that I had a system. So now that we've done all that, we're going to let this sit. I'm thinking I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours because this is really the crux of the whole project, is not having any leaks. So you can see it spilling out the sides there. That's what we want. And we're going to let that sit for 24 hours. Then we're going to add 5 quarts of fluid, which is what we got out of it with the filter and everything that drained out. So we'll pick it up then. Okay, so just a quick review on the RTV silicone gasket for the transmission pan. There really aren't good directions as far as nothing mentioned about time and waiting in between steps. So here's what I found just Googling and doing some research. So when you first make your new gasket bead and you put it up against your transmission housing and you finger tighten all of your transmission pan bolts, you want to let that sit for 1 hour. You don't want it to sit for less than 1 hour. You don't want it to sit for more than 1 hour. So after an hour, you go out and you torque all those bolts down to 7 foot-pounds. Once you do that, you leave it dry. Leave it for a minimum of 24 hours. And so we've left ours for almost 38 hours. So the transmission has been dry for 38 hours before we put any fluid in it. But you do need to wait 24 hours. You do not want to have to redo that step, because if you have any leaks, you got to start over again. So it's definitely worth waiting. So I'm going to use this little, it's actually a laser tape measure, but I'm going to use it as a pointer to show you where that transmission bolt is. Okay, so going straight down from this air box, that's really the only way to see it. You can see where the red light is. That's where your bolt goes in for the transmission fill plug, and that is where we put our funnel. Okay, so this is a transmission funnel, very nice, bendable. I'm gonna use this, I'll put links in the description. I'll put that down in that bolt that I just showed you. When we emptied out our transmission fluid that came out the drain bolt, then we took our pan off and emptied that. We took our filter off and emptied that. We got 5 quarts out. So there is a way to put in some fluid, put your drain bolt back in, run the car, drive the car, come back, check it at operating temperature while it's hot. It's also say to do it while it's running and in park. And I'm sorry, but that's not safe to, while the car's running, to stick my hand down there and grab that dipstick while I got these fans right here. I'm not doing that. I don't know why they don't make transmission fluid levels more safe to check while the engine's hot and running. But I'm gonna just stick with what I know. 5 quarts came out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put 5 quarts in there. We're gonna go ahead and get our dipstick back in or our bolt back in, and we're done. It's gonna get worked in naturally while we drive the car and shift the gears. So I don't need to worry about any of that while I'm adding fluid or while it's sitting in the garage. So we're gonna just put the 5 quarts in, put the bolts back in, and then what I will do is I'll run the car while it's on jack stands so that I can check for leaks. So I will do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this, this funnel's nice because it's so bendable. I can see the hole down in there. So all I gotta do, put it in the hole it's in. And then you do have to hold this. You don't want this stuff spilling. I've already loosened all 5 of these caps. They did not have foil on them. They're just sealed, you know, where you actually break the cap free. So right now, this of course is the Mazda FZ. Mazda fluid type FZ. We got it at our local Mazda dealer. Whenever you're doing a job like this, I would always buy 1 more quart than you think you need and keep the receipt and just take back. It's easier to finish your job and get your refund when it's at your convenience than it is to have to go and buy something else and then come back and finish your job. So they wanted me to only sell me 4. They would try to argue with us. Oh, you only need 4. And I said, well, I want 5. And so I'm glad we stuck with that because we got 5 quarts out. So I need 5. If you end up with an extra quart, I would not save it. It's going to be a long time before you end up doing this again, and you never know if you're going to have that car. You don't want that old fluid sitting on the shelf for years. So go ahead and put that money back in your pocket and not keep unopened new fluids on things like this that you don't use very often. And if you have a partial quart, then definitely keep that. Once you've opened it, go ahead and keep it. Also, on this kind of bottle, they are designed to pour this way. You get a smoother pour doing it this way than turning the bottle the other way. Nice, clean, pretty blue fluid. Like a blue-green. You always hold on to your funnel. It's not worth a nasty spill. This funnel also has a filter screen in the top of it to keep any contaminants out, which is nice, and it doesn't seem to slow down the flow. If you can get a shot in the top of that funnel showing that filter screen right there. So reading that about the RTV silicone needing to set, it's also kind of interesting. You know, the dealerships don't do that. I mean, if you were to take your car in and have them change your filter, you know they're not going to tell you to come back in 2 days. So it's kind of curious. Unless they have some sort of quick setting, you know, RTV silicone that sets up in a few minutes or something. But it'd be curious for a Mazda technician to comment, you know, how long do you guys let it sit, and do you have any problems with that? Because this is something I've never done before. I don't know. I'm just researching. I know it doesn't hurt to wait, so that's why I did it this way. I need to get a rag so that I can remove that funnel. So now our 5 quarts are added. So now we've got the fun part of trying to get that bolt back in. And I say fun part because when I reach my socket down in there I'm gonna set my funnel in the trash can for a minute and let it kind of empty out a little bit. Because when I took that bolt out, it dropped. Like when I loosened it, and it's not magnetic. I've tried magnetizing it, it won't work. So I can't get that bolt to stick to my socket. So yeah, it's just down in there. I'm just gonna have to do my best to I'm gonna dry the surface off. Now you can take this air box and stuff out of the way. That's what I see most people doing. If I can reach a bolt, I'd rather just reach down in there. So some of it's just kind of looking and figuring out what's in your way. So I kind of got it wiped off. Hits my forearm. So I need to grab 2 things. Our dipstick and the bolt. So the dipstick goes in the big hole that we just put the funnel in to put our fluid in. That's where this one goes. And then our bolt is gonna go in the small hole to hold this in. So really I need to just put this bolt where I'm not gonna lose it. Keep it right there. This is made to grab your fingers right here. So I'm just gonna kind of use my light. Do my best. Okay, so I just kind of dropped it in there. So I really didn't get my hand down in there very far, but I was able to get that in there. So what I'm gonna do, since my wife is able to help me, I'm gonna have her watch from up here, and I'm gonna go under the car and see if I can put my hand up on top and get it in there and get it started. Once I get it started and I get a couple of threads, I can come back up top and get my socket wrench on it. So all I'm trying to do is get this in the hole and just barely hand turn. So I'm gonna give that a try from underneath. Okay, so I'm underneath the car and I can actually see this bolt right here. So I'm just gonna trying to hold the light for you for the video, but I can't do that. Okay, so I kind of got a light lodged in there. I'm just gonna kind of reach my hand up here, and so I got it in the hole, but now I have to rotate it, which isn't the easiest from this angle. I say I'm in the hole. Can't really tell. Yeah, I can't get a good angle to push down and rotate. Okay, I'm rotating it. I think it's working. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me, from underneath here, let me kind of show you how easy it was from underneath. Okay, so underneath the car, so you look at, this is our, transmission pan that we did all the work on. So right on this gap here, this bolt, here's the dipstick, this little gray tab, and the bolt's right here. So you can see that. So it's easy to get that in and start that nut from down here. So now I can go back up top and use the ratchet and tighten that up. All right, so from up top, got my ratchet set up, 3/8 inch drive, 6 inch extension, 3 inch extensions, 10 millimeter deep socket. Got it on there. Just don't think I can get, I think I'm gonna have to take my 3 inch drive off and do it by hand until it starts to get tight, because I have such a small range of movement on the ratchet that I can't really get it to tighten with the ratchet handle on there, if that makes sense, because there's not enough resistance. Okay. Feel like I tightened it a little bit. Hopefully that will be enough for the ratchet to start to do its thing. They have a torque spec even on this bolt. I don't think that's necessary to use a torque wrench on this bolt. You just want it snug. Not over tight, but things are going to be in there for 30,000 miles until we do a drain and fill. So I don't want it over tightened, but I want it pretty snug. Your range of motion is so little, and I'm hoping that this ratchet isn't loosening it as it comes back. I can hear the ratchet sounds now, so I feel pretty good about that. Not really getting much resistance, but can tell it's in there. Definitely not over tightening it. It may seem like it because it's taken me a while, but I'm barely getting any movement each time I move the ratchet. Okay, that's very snug. That's good. When I feel like it's snug, that's not going anywhere. All right, our dipstick is back in. So for our purposes, other than running the car and checking for leaks, the actual work of the transmission fluid change is done. So we're gonna run the car. So it just so happens that while I'm doing this, I'm also doing a coolant change. And so I need to run the car to let my coolant get all the air out of the system. So I'm gonna let the car run while we do that. So just keep in mind, if you're doing multiple things at one time like I am, I did an oil change, coolant change, transmission change, you have to think through what you're doing in the order so that you don't start your car up when it doesn't have fluids in it. So we did the oil change first, completed that, started the car and everything, so that was fine because we still had all the other fluids in there. But while we were letting the transmission pan sit and dry, I drained the coolant out to make use of that time. And so I can't start the car now to check the transmission fluid. So I don't have coolant in the car. So I need to wait till I add the coolant before I warm it up. So just think about when you're doing things, hey, I haven't done this yet. I have to do all this before I start it. And then also things like the tire rotation is spread out in between this job. So on the tire rotation, I have everything done but the final torquing of the lug nuts. So I wrote it down and I left my torque wrench sitting out ready to go for those lug nuts so I won't forget to torque them down. So when you got multiple things going, you just got to keep track so you make sure you finish everything. So we'll check back in with you in a little bit. Okay, so all that's left before we take this off of jack stands now is I'm going to crawl under the car. I'm going to look at the transmission pan, make sure I don't see any fluid seeping around that gasket area or anywhere. We didn't get any drops. And while I'm under there, I'm going to take this stuff with me so I don't have to keep getting up and down. So I've got all my new plastic clips ready to go, my 6 new clips along with all my bolts. And so I'm going to go under there with my wrench and my 10, I think that was my 10 millimeter socket, and I'm going to put all these back. And so I'm going to get that under panel back on there right now. All right, before we put this underbody panel back on, we're just going to go ahead and do a real quick wash. All right, so my first order of business is to check out my seal on the transmission pan. Good news, I see no fluid, 0. Definitely don't rush that process of waiting and just letting it sit. This isn't something I ever want to have to do again, so the drain and fill would be easy. Drop in the pan and change the filter part. Alright, so that's awesome news. Okay, so now I'm gonna finagle this thing back in here. Yeah, there is no access panel for the transmission drain pan. So even if you were just doing a drain and fill, you would still have to take this off. Okay, so I'm just gonna start in the corner. Those 3 plastic clips kind of are helpful in this scenario of just trying to get it held up, because you just push them through the hole, wait till the base contacts, and then you push the button in and they're in. So that's kind of good because I need help holding this on. So they're gonna provide a quick, easy way of holding that on. So now I got 3 clips in and a bolt holding this side.